sound. Oh. There you go. Now the sound. Whoa! I must have accidentally pressed the mute button on my mic. I'm so sorry. Is everyone shouting at me? No sound? Yes. Number 3 is literally shouting at me. No sound in caps. Don't worry. I noticed on the meters on the screen. Hello. Okay. Let's start again. Hello and welcome to Hughes at 10. It is 10 o'clock. Well, it's actually 10 past 10. On the, double 10s then, isn't it? On the 14th of February 2022. It's Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's Day for everybody out there. I hope you got a nice card off your grandmother saying happy Valentine's Day. Right, so I'll just say hello to everyone who seems to have tuned in this evening. Not that you can tune in a computer, but you know what I mean. Good evening, everyone, says Reagan Elite. Who liked my card? Do you like my card? Yeah, come on, that was a cool card. Thank you. Mad Monk 33 is there saying evening, Reagan Elite. Glasgow is saying hello. Number 3 is saying hello, peeps. We've got John Barleycorn here. We've got Adrian Wilson. We've got Mad Monk. We've got Asperger's Europe. We've got the Intolerant Left. We've got Martin Bennett asking, hello, Graham and all. Is this one about Putin? Yes, it is about Putin. The Mad Monkey. See what I did there? Rasputin. The Mad Monkey of Russia. This guy who's gone through this sort of, I don't know, midlife crisis. No, he's too old to be in his midlife crisis. He's 70 this year, isn't he? He's just, he knows he's going to die. He knows he's not doing anything really except drive his country further backwards and make lots of money for his friends and nobody else. For the last 22 years, he's been in power, actually, since 2000. And the guy's creep. I hate him. I can't stand the man. I think he's horrible. And people who defend him, people who stick up for him, people who say he's got legitimate grievances. Oh, fuck off. Like, seriously, that's the sort of thing that people say about immigrants. Oh, they've got like justifiable grievances. No, you haven't. Legitimate concerns. That's another one of these. I've got legitimate concerns about trans women using my toilet. I've got legitimate concerns about children being exposed to gay people existing. I've got legitimate concerns about this. It's the same bullshit that Karens pull out all over the world. The same stuff that Putin puts out because he's such a weak, shitty leader. And he's in charge of a weak, shitty country, which should be the biggest country in the world. He should try this world like a colossus, but he's too busy, I don't know, invading neighbouring countries and taking bits of their land, even though Russia's the biggest country in the world. Doesn't need to be any bigger. But in Putin's head, that's what I call the Soviet Empire state of mind, he is the exact same mindset as the gammony dickheads who voted for Brexit. Because he's got this nostalgia, this toxic nostalgia for the old days of the empire. Now with us, it's the British Empire. For him, it's the Soviet Empire. The days where men were men and women were women and they were all round up into a camp and shot. Yay! Great times. Let's go back to those days. That's great. Yeah, when people had to queue up for a potato and a loaf of bread. At least when British people go on out the British Empire for all the disgusting things that the British did around the world, it was actually quite lucrative and good for the people of Britain, generally speaking. Generally speaking, I know obviously a lot of toxic masculinity and toxic racism feeds over into the way that you have people who are working class who feel that they have more association in their life with someone like Rees fucking Mogg than they do with their actual neighbour who works in the same place as they do and eats in the same places and their kids play together in school, but they're different because they're a different colour. But Rees Mogg, he's just like me, Rees Mogg. Yeah, we're worth $100 million, pounds even, but he's just like me. Anyway, painful, freaking painful, I tell you. So yes, it's going to be about Putin. It's hard to believe that he would be so stupid as to galvanise united response. I'm reading Martin Bennett's message here. Perhaps he thinks he can find advantage in making a frightening threat. Yeah. I think he's panicking. I'm going to go through the timeline. I'm going to talk about how we got here and why I think we're here and maybe some suggestions of where this is going to go next. If he does invade, I don't want him to invade. If he does invade, I do think, cards on the table, I think it's going to be an absolute freaking disaster for Russia. I think it's going to be an absolute disaster for the people of Russia. It's obviously going to be a disaster for the people of Ukraine because Ukrainians will die fighting against this foreign invasion. But see, Putin seems to think of Ukraine as the little brother. He doesn't seem to understand that it's a sovereign nation in its own right and has been for the best part of 30 years. So that Soviet mindset of Putin's, he still believes that Georgia, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Kazakhstan, Turkestan, that's not a real place, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Kyrgyzstan, and Moldova, and Belarus. Actually, Belarus probably, you could argue, is still part of the old USSR. I think it still calls itself... Doesn't it still call itself the BSSR? I don't know. But basically, yeah. Putin still thinks that Ukraine should do what he says. And Ukraine isn't doing what he wants. And so he's already invaded. He's already taken Crimea. He's already built a bridge over the gap between the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. So basically, if you're trying to get out of eastern Ukraine onto the Sea of Azov, and then you're trying to get into the Black Sea, you can't, because Putin's bridge stops you getting out. Nice. That's the bridge from Russia proper into Crimea, an area that he annexed. I mean, imagine if Putin decides to just, I don't know, annex the Isle of Wight, and that you get all these apologists in the UK going, oh, well, there's a lot of Russian speakers in the Isle of Wight. Well, there isn't, but could you imagine? That's his excuse, actually, in nearly all of this. And you'll come and see that this, time and time again, his excuse is, oh, but there's Russian speakers there. I want to take the eastern part of Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. Why do you want to take those countries, Putin? Oh, because there's Russian-speaking people there. Do you speak Russian? Yeah. A lot of people speak English in Ireland. I don't think that anyone's going to be able to justify an invasion of Ireland, mate. I think a lot of people speak English in South Africa. I don't think the government of South Africa would be too happy if we just came along and annexed Durban. A lot of people speak English in America, in the United States of America. I don't think they'll be too happy if we came along and annexed Rhode frickin' Island. But no, Russia's not big enough. Russia needs more space. We want more space. We want to control Ukraine, and we want a puppet leader in control of Ukraine, and we want it to be our little mate, and we don't want it to be part of NATO, and we certainly don't want it to be part of the European Union. Which is why Russia has been fighting this asymmetric war for the last 15 years, trying to get Britain to turn in on itself, trying to get the EU to turn in on itself. This is the country that goes, oh, look at all these Nazis everywhere. Oh, we got to go into Ukraine to protect them from the Nazis. And who's the one funding all the right-wing parties? Who's the one who's the people the government that funds Marine Le Pen, Nigel Farage, Viktor Orban? His names ring a bell? Yeah, far right twats. Who's funding them? It's the fucking Russians. Oh, well, that's a surprise, isn't it? So, sorry, you're fighting against the Nazis, are you, mate? That's what you're doing. You're fighting against the Nazis. So the current president of Ukraine, Zelensky, he is actually not just a Russian speaker, he's also Jewish, for Christ's sake. So good luck spinning your, oh, they're all Nazis narrative these days, which is why they're probably amassing at the border. I do realise I've got to, oh, it says too loud. Ooh, I've got to turn the sound down a bit. Sorry. I don't know what's happened to my microphone settings. They seem to have gone all bananas in the last couple of weeks. So I've turned the volume right down now, so it's only peaking at about half. If it's still distorting, can you let me know? Because when I did the playback the other day of my Prime Minister's questions, my vocals were actually distorting, even though I was just talking at a normal voice. So let me know. Anyway, the Nazis were left-wing from Pressure Drop. What? No. God, there are people out there who seriously believe this kind of shite. Like, they honestly believe that the Nazis were left-wing when the Nazis stated that they were right-wing. I mean, I think that the Nazis probably knew what they were better than anyone else. But people get confused because the Nazis called themselves the National Socialist German Workers' Party in order to get knobheads on board to go, oh, yeah, they're socialist, yeah. But they weren't. They were not socialist. A socialist government is something like the government of Denmark or Sweden, where they have a lot of state intervention, and you have basically you get looked after from cradle to the grave. Norway is probably the best example of a socialist democracy anywhere on the planet. A place where every man, woman, and child is a krona millionaire because they've got this sovereign wealth fund that they've been paying into for decades through the money that they're getting from the oil from the North Sea. Anyway, so it's low sound now, says Glasgow Kiss. Oh my God, I can't win. Okay, I'm going to turn the sound back up. Hopefully it's not too noisy. Right, there you go. It's on. I can't even see that. Minus 22, I think. Right, I don't get it. Russia is the biggest and research-wise richest country on Earth, but instead of that, they'd rather meddle abroad. Yeah, Custom, it really doesn't make any sense. Not in these, but then again, it didn't make any sense for America to interfere in what was going on in Iraq. But they did because, whatever, you could argue that they didn't really have much of a business hanging around in Afghanistan after they'd taken out the terrorist training camps and I guess arguably taken out Bin Laden in 2010 or 2011, whenever that happened. 2011, I think. Oh, my mistake, Graham. The sound problem was my... Oh, God. Okay, Richard. Sorry, anyone who thought I was a bit too quiet then. I'm sorry everyone's having to dick around with the power. Their volume. I'm sure I got a super chat there somewhere. Oh, I did. Alexis, thank you very much. Oh, hola, Graham. Lang Meya Lomrik. Thank you very much, Alexis. You are awesome. And thank you very much for that £5 super chat. My super chats aren't open on my other channels, so if you do want to give a super chat, this is the channel to give it on. And I don't think that there is a PMQs this week, because I'm pretty sure that Parliament's in recess. I'm just going to check in real time whether PMQs is happening this week. And the answer is, this is confusing. Prime Minister's questions, Wednesday the 23rd. Yeah, there isn't one this week. So no Prime Minister's questions, no squarey, not safe for work PMQs this week, unfortunately. But yes, indeed. Too loud, caps. I can hear you now. Muted, no sound. 5 out of 5. I had a bit of a Twitter rant to Duke Vengeance. Are you sure about that? Number 3, small fairy creatures from Alpha Centauri. Was real small fairy creatures from Alpha Centauri. Thank you very much, John Barleycorn, for throwing in that Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference. I love you, man. Devil Dean says the BBC is just doing a news report on the high petrol price in the UK, stating that the rise is due to problems in Ukraine. Yeah, because we get all of our fuel from Russia and Ukraine. Really? The Dirty Fecker says, I don't think Putin will invade. Looks like posturing for his own native political problems. If he was going to invade, he would have done it by now. Lost any element of surprise. He's got a window. He's got a window apparently until like halfway through March. So he's got about a month left in which he can roll his tanks in, and then the weather's not going to be right for him doing that, because at the moment it's icy, so he can roll his tanks over the ice, but if the ice melts, it'll be muddy, and they get stuck in the mud. But it's going to be a bit of an insane conflict if it does take place, because what the Russian army are going to be up against is people fighting for their own country, whereas the Russians are not really fighting for their own country. They're probably fighting for the money, I guess, which doesn't make people as motivated. You're less likely to die, to want to die, to take your $200 a month home. So realistically, the Ukrainians, although they're a much smaller army, they have got the backing of the US and the UK, and hopefully, everybody else who's got an ounce of sense. But let's talk about NATO. Let's talk about a few things. Oh, I've got a £20 super chat. Thank you very much. Thank you, Glasgow. New channels was a risky move. You have 27,000 subs here. Have £20. Thank you very much, Glasgow. I know it was a risky move, but it had to be done, and I just thought, sod it. I'll just cut it off, and I've got plans for the travel channel. I'm hoping that one will actually take off in its own way. The film channel, I'm happy for that just to live on as a little repository of my portfolio of stuff that I've made for sharing with people, and then just once a week we do a little film chat on there. Dirty Fact says Putin wants a buffer state between Russia and the EU, but he'd prefer his border to be the big river running down the middle of Ukraine. Easier to culturally assimilate the people who live there. Yep, indeed. Thank you very much for that comment, Dirty Fecker. You're very right. So let's rewind a little bit. 1989, the Berlin Wall came down in November 1989, and that heralded the end of the Soviet dream of, the Soviet sphere of influence, while West Germany wasn't actually an SSR, it wasn't part of the USSR, it was a satellite state that was pretty much had a puppet regime in it that was run by the USSR, run by Moscow. Let's say it was run by Moscow. It really wasn't run from Almaty or from Bishkek or anywhere else. It was run from Moscow, so it was a Russian enterprise. And that was the same situation in Czechoslovakia as it was then, also in Hungary. It was a puppet regime, also in Romania and Bulgaria, all under the sphere of Soviet influence. Meanwhile, Georgia, Azerbaijan, and Armenia were actually SSRs. They were part of the USSR, as was the other countries I mentioned earlier: Belarus, Moldova, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan. Not Afghanistan, although the Russians did invade Afghanistan in 1979, they faced the same problems that the Americans faced and the British faced time and time again every time they went into Afghanistan and got their asses kicked. Look up the 1842 retreat from Kabul and see what happens. See what happens when you delve into something as daft as hanging around Afghanistan for too long, which is something that great powers seem to like to do on occasions. Never ends up well. But anyway, so these 15 countries of the USSR, including actually, there was also Chechnya and Dagestan, which also wanted to be their own republics, but the Russians wouldn't allow that, and that's why you got Chechen rebels, but you didn't particularly get any, Georgian rebels causing trouble in Russia. In fact, Georgia, the country of Georgia, is where Stalin was from. Stalin was actually born in Georgia. He wasn't actually born in Russia. Fun fact, everyone. Just like Hitler actually didn't come from Germany, he came from Austria. Yeah, that's a not so fun fact. Okay, so anyway, in 1989, the war came down. This one big blob, this one big landmass, the USSR, it's split into 15 states. And at the time, Russia itself was on its arse. People were queuing up for bread. People were queuing up for potatoes. It was insane. Like it was one of the most military-equipped countries in the world. And yet, it had all these nuclear warheads, more nuclear warheads than anyone else. And yet, it couldn't afford to feed its own people. And that was more to do with internal politics, the fact that they would never admit they'd done anything wrong, even when confronted with a disaster like Chernobyl. It took a long time for the people at the top to go, oh yeah, something bad has happened, we should do something about that. A lot longer than it should have done, because they wanted to cover it up. They didn't want to tell anyone. It was only when a significant amount of radiation sort of wafted over into other countries that people went, something's happened in Ukraine, because Chernobyl was in Ukraine. Now, in 1994, Ukraine, fledgling new Republic of Ukraine, decided that it would like to get rid of its nuclear weapons. There were a bunch of reasons for this, and it did have a lot of pressure being put on it by the US and by Russia at the time to get rid of nuclear weapons. At the time, I think it was the third biggest repository of nuclear weapons, the third biggest nuclear weapon owner in the world after the US and Russia. And they agreed. They said, okay. And they shipped all of their defunct nuclear weapons to Russia, where they were deactivated or decommissioned, as they say. And the agreement was, it was called the Budapest Memorandum, and the idea was that they gave up their nuclear weapons, and in return, the Americans and the Russians agreed to never invade Ukraine. However, it wasn't legally binding. And we in Britain know what it means when something isn't legally binding, when it's just a gentleman's agreement, when it's just a verbal agreement. It's not worth the paper it's written on, as the guy in the old piracy video from the 1990s used to say. Video piracy, not high seas piracy, obviously different type of piracy. Anyway, so 1994, this was agreed, and then in 2008, I'm going to skip forward a little bit, Russia decides to invade Georgia. Now, why? Why did it invade Georgia in 2008? Why would it do that? What would Georgia have had its own borders? They've been there for the best part of 18 years as this individual state, or 15, 16 years. And Putin swept in. Actually, Putin wasn't president at the time. It was Mendeleev, was it? Those few years when Putin wasn't president because he was busy changing the constitution so he could be president again. But he was really running the country, but he had another president in charge. And Putin was the prime minister for a little while. Weird times. But then he changed the constitution, which is something that all great shit dictators do in order for them to remain in power forever and ever and ever. If you tuned into my Hughes of the World this week, you'd know that in Colombia, they have a rule. You can only stand for 1 term, 4 years. 1 term, 4 years as president. Brilliant. That's what they should have in every country in the world. 4 years max. Imagine that, because Boris Johnson will be out this summer because he got in 2018, didn't he? Or was it 2019? Oh, shit, it'll be next summer. Damn it. Time has gone really funny with COVID, hasn't it? It doesn't... Yeah, when you think about when lockdown started, it feels like a year ago, right? It was 2 years ago. Yeah. It's weird that, isn't it? Okay, so it wasn't legally binding. And then in 2008, Georgia decided to start making moves towards joining NATO, along with joining the EU as well. And the president at the time, he said, whose name bloody escapes me, and it's going to annoy me now. You can tell me in the chat what his name was. Oh, what was his name? I should know this. This might come up in a quiz show one day, and I'll forget what it was. The president of Georgia back in the day was... I forgot. Anyway, he was very keen on joining NATO and eventually joining the EU. And Lee Corn says feels like 5 years ago. Yeah, it does indeed. Anyway, so... Yeah, and as punishment, Putin ordered troops to go over the border and annex South Ossetia and Abkhazia to regions of Georgia, comprising of almost a quarter of all of the Georgian territory. And they just took it. They just annexed it in the space of like 2 weeks. And there was hardly any backlash from the rest of the world. Dmitry Medvedev... Saskavili or something, says Dimtiar. Saskavili? Yeah, Saskavili. Okay. Saakashvili. Saakashvili. It was Saakashvili, wasn't it? President Saakashvili was the Georgian president, and he was like, want to get closer ties at Europe, and Putin was like, no! And as punishment for even thinking about it, he annexed these 2 parts of Russian-speaking Georgia, which is what happens to countries around the USSR. Now, this freaked out, obviously, the countries that abut Russia, like Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia. The Baltic states, Liz Truss, not to be confused with the Balkans. That's a form of Yugoslavia, okay? And not to be confused with the Black Sea. That's a completely different sea on the other side of the continent of Europe. It's got 1,000 miles or so away from the Baltic Sea. Anyway, the Baltic states, they were very concerned because they shared a border with Russia. And they were, by then, members of NATO. NATO had expanded at the end of the Cold War. To comprise some of the countries that were former members of what was called the Warsaw Pact, which was the group of countries on the side of, the Russian side, with Poland obviously being where Warsaw is. So I forgot to mention Poland before, but Poland and Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, all those places were either part of the USSR or part of the sphere of influence. So Poland was an individual country. It wasn't an SSR, but it was under the Soviet sphere of influence. Meanwhile, there was the American sphere of influence, which was NATO. And NATO was a non-aggression pact. It was simply this. If one of the members of NATO is invaded, then it counts as an invasion of all of the members of NATO. There are 30 countries that are part of NATO now, since North Macedonia joined us just a few years ago. And so now there's 30 countries, 20 of whom are in the EU, but according to Nigel Farage and all those Tories who are paid by Russians to say things out of their fucking clanging manholes. So I try not to swear so much, but God, I hate them. I just really want them to stop appearing on television or Twitter or the internet, or in life, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say. I wish I'll stay home and not do anything. Anyway, but these ghouls who sort of say, always making excuses for Putin, aren't they? Oh, he's a good man, really. He's just a strong man. We like a strong man. No, he's a weak leader and he's absolutely shitting bricks that he's going to be kicked out from his position as the president of Russia without achieving his ridiculous dream of resurrecting the Soviet Empire. Edvard Shevardnadze, that's it. Not Saakashvili. That was someone else. Shevardnadze. Yeah. Sorry. Thank you, M.R. Spoon, for getting that right. That was Shevardnadze was the president of Georgia in 2008. Buy a swear jar, says Reagan Elite. That is a fucking good idea. Oh, shit, sorry. Yes, indeed. Anyway, so also what happened in 2008 was Ukraine applied to initiate ties with NATO because they basically saw what was going on in Georgia. This was a country that had a huge border with Russia, and Russia was already being aggressive to its satellite states. So satellite states is a bad way of putting it. Neighbouring states, I should say, not satellites, and neighbouring states. And it had already been quick to interfere with what was going on in other countries, especially in Belarus and Kazakhstan and places like that, where they just, and Turkmenistan, for instance, they just couldn't let it go. They couldn't let their empire go. And you know what? It's exactly the same mentality. I'll say this a million times. It's exactly the same mentality as Brexiteers who go on and on about the fucking British Empire all the time. It's the same mentality. Putin has the same mentality as them, but about the the USSR, the Soviet Empire, which, as I've said, is ridiculous when you think about how much suffering the Russian people went through in the time of Stalin and leaders that came after Stalin. Bayerberg, never underestimate your enemy, especially if its name begins with R and ends in Usha. Well, yeah. You're right, Bayerberg. Yeah, I can slag off Putin as much as I like. I think that this, if he does invade, it's going to be a bloodbath. I think it's going to be really hard on people of Ukraine. I think it's disgusting that this man is doing this. I think it's disgusting that this man is putting his troops on the border to threaten another country, another sovereign state. And when people go, oh, but hang on, we can't interfere because we interfered in Iraq and that was a terrible idea. Yes, but we weren't defending Iraq from anything. I would defend the first Iraq war because that was actually to liberate Kuwait. Iraq had invaded another sovereign state, and we went in with others to get rid of the Iraqi army from Kuwait. And once that was done, we didn't continue to go after Saddam Hussein. We just kind of pulled back and said, right, there you go, there's a border, happy days. We were defending a sovereign state against an aggressive attacker. In the second Gulf War, the second Iraq War, we weren't doing that. We weren't doing that at all. We were going into a country which had a leader that we didn't like. And you know what? All things being equal, I would have liked to have seen Saddam Hussein removed from power at any day of the week. He was a scumbag. He was an absolute scumbag who gassed his own people up in the north of Iraq, up in Erbil, in the early 90s, in what's now the autonomous Kurdish region of Iraq. And the guy was a monster. But the justification of invading a country because its leader is a bad leader isn't a really good justification to invade anywhere. Because if you start down that road, what stops someone saying, well, actually, Trump was a very bad leader? What if he gets back in 2024? Can we then say, oh, well, we're going to take out America now because we've got a bad leader? Well, leaders don't last forever. And as long as they're not invading another country, I don't know, assassinate them or something. Just find a different way of taking them out. Don't invade with a bloody load of people and so hundreds of thousands of people die. But Ukraine doesn't have a bad leader. I know he's an ex-comedian and he's just like quite a nice fella by the sounds of things. But like he was a democratically elected leader. He won the runoff in the 2019 election with 75% of the votes against the former president, who had been in power for 5 years at that point. And Zelensky has just been quite moderate in this whole affair. He's not been rabble-rousing too much. He's done his best to calm fears, especially in Ukraine. I understand why he's doing this. He's sort of saying, look, we calm down. It's going to be war rhetoric. But at the same time, it is freaking worrying that Putin, as of now, is sending more troops to the border to amass on the border. Glasgow there, to the swear jar. Wank, not you. Oh, brilliant. Thanks very much, Glasgow Kiss. So if anyone wants to swear, Send a super chat with your favourite swear word, and I will say it live on air. Okay, so if you want me to swear, throw some money in the super chat, and that's my swear chat. All right, that's all you have to do. So thanks very much for that, Glasgow. Brilliant. Oh my gosh, neglecting all the other facts about the first Iraq War, such as the USA green-lighting the Kuwait invasion. Oh, okay, yeah. See, that's when we get a bit murky, Pineapple Boy, because up till that point, Iraq had been kind of the darling of the West. We were on their side in the Iran-Iraq war, which ran through the 1980s, because Iran was being run by the crazy Ayatollahs, and we didn't want anything to do with them. So it was a case of, in this war that we don't really understand, which is over the Shattalaru waterway, what we're going to do is we're going to support the Iraqis. But actually, by we I mean the West, supported both sides in terms of arms. We sold weapons to both sides in the Iran-Iraq war, a war which saw trench warfare, mustard gas, 1 million people dead in the Iran-Iraq war, and we were supplying arms to both sides. Yeah, there's nothing we come out of this in a wonderful wonderful starry way, but the fact remains that a country invaded another country. A sovereign state invaded another sovereign state, and then other countries came together and said, "Oi, piss off back where you came from." That sounds a bit racist, doesn't it? Shit. When you say it to an invading army, it's got slightly different connotations. I'm all for immigration, but it has its limits. Bollocks, says Alexis G. Thank you very much for that swear. That was a very nice swear. The Ukrainian leader is better than the British one, so there's that. Yeah, Yoni. Well, wouldn't be hard. Boy, John Barleycorn, no leader will go down the road of assassinating other leaders on the basis that they could be next. Good point, John Barleycorn. Number 3. Oh, didn't stop them trying to kill Fidel Castro, though, did it? I mean, didn't they have like a poison wetsuit for him to wear? God, Jesus. What's a question? This is from number 3. What's a 4-letter C word? Fish. Oh, very good. I like that. I'm going to say that to people when they go, why did you use that word group? Right, anyway, so, sorry, Reagan Lee's just putting up a thing saying, don't misuse the world on Thursdays. We're talking about Comoros this week. And I know it's not a country that people know much about, but I did spend several weeks there on my journey around the world. So I know quite a lot about Comoros, strangely enough. So I should be able to talk about it for an hour, even though it's a very small country. Just comprises of 3 small islands. Apologies, no need to apologise. Number 3, that was great. Duke Vengeance, what? Us British did something terrible? Never. Hides the many books of British people terrorised the world. Well, yeah, Duke Vengeance. But point is that even though we did something terrible in the way that we supported both sides in the Iran-Iraq war, at the same time, it doesn't stop us. It doesn't negate, and it shouldn't negate the idea that if any country in the world is invaded by its neighbour and asks for help, because look, the borders of the world are fairly well established now. And in the case of Kuwait, it wasn't like them taking a little bit of the north. It was the whole bloody country. They took over the capital. They took over Kuwait City. They used those sticks with the balls on the big building. It's like those balls that they have on the sticks, buildings. And they used them as target practice. It was a horrible, horrible time. Comoros was considered to be part of the Arab world by General Nasser. Yes, it was. That's very true. And it's a Muslim country, and it's got the crescent moon on their flag, which is nice and colourful. Anyway, so yes, in 2010, the then pro Russia Ukrainian president Yanukovych. He shelved the intention of NATO, doing anything with NATO, and retain the country's non-aligned status. And this guy was basically a puppet of Putin's, and he started. First of all, he said we're going to be non-aligned. We're not going to do anything with NATO. And then in November 2013, he called off the association agreement with the EU. This led to civil unrest. And just a few months later, we had a revolution. We had the Revolution of Dignity, or the Maidan Revolution, in February 2014, which is when there's a popular uprising to get rid of a guy who was a puppet ruler of Russia. And there was a big push at the time for showing the world that Ukraine was very much a Western-looking, pro democratic, pro-European Union country. And so what does Putin do? That very same month, he started sending the troops into Crimea. The little green men started appearing, as they were called. These guys who were not wearing any particular uniform of any given country. They just had the fatigues on. And they started turning up all over Crimea. And then Putin said, "Oh, they want to be separatists. Here, have a referendum." And the referendum was won 99% or something ridiculous. It wasn't really, by people saying, yes, we want to be part of Russia again. We don't want to be part of that horrible European bloc that is really rich and prosperous. We want to be part of this angry, poor, disenfranchised, gulag-baiting, gobshite country like Russia. Sorry, I'm not in a good mood with Russia today, so if any Russians are watching this, I'm very sorry for being entirely prejudiced against your country. I don't mean it you personally, I mean it as in your politicians and your leaders. And look, all things being equal, I will slag off Britain to the ends of the earth at the moment. We are being run by a bunch of screaming chimps in a monkey car on fire going off a cliff. And so, yeah, before anyone goes, oh, why do you hate Russians? I don't hate Russians. The Russian people are lovely. It's just the people in charge are not very nice, to say the least. Number 3, am I right in thinking that 100,000 Iraqi soldiers were buried alive during the Gulf War via bulldozers? I've not heard that rumour. I'd have to check that up. The Dirty Fecker says, if Putin is posturing and does not plan to invade, it shows his situation in Russia is not stable. He must have knife sharpeners hanging in the wings. Maybe. He's made his friends a lot of money. So anyway, there was this bullshit referendum. I love a good bullshit referendum. Do you know who's fond of referendums? The Nazis. Yeah. But Russian media and Russian propaganda went out around the same time saying that the Maidan Revolution was all Nazis, it was all neo-Nazis, it was a big neo-Nazi takeover of Ukraine. Come join Mother Russia and we'll save you from the Nazis, just like we did in the war. And it's like, the war's over. The war's fucking over. I'm sick of hearing about the Second fucking World War. Honestly, I am sick to death of it. I have heard about nothing but the Second World War all of my life, and I'm 43 years old and I'm sick of it. I'm bored. I'm just bored now. It was a long time ago. Let's just learn the lessons from the past. Let's not revel in it. Let's not glorify it. Let's just say that was a terrible time and it was caused by people doing X, Y, Z. Let's never do those things again. I'm sick of it. But obviously there are people who are obsessed. They are obsessed with the war, and obviously there's a lot of them in Russia, I guess, along with the people in Britain who are obsessed with the war. You know, that one time we did a good thing. Yeah, kind of. Tell that to the people of Bengal. Anyway, moving on. Adrian Wilson, good stuff, but recall Kremlin created the Eurasian Economic Union, signed 29th of May 2014, as a specific rival challenge to the EU. Ukraine was meant to join then Euromaidan. Euromaidan happened in February that year, so that would have been before then, wouldn't it? Wasn't that before? I don't know. I'm losing me track of time. I'll tell you what did happen in July of 2014. Ukrainian separatists, backed by Russia, with Russian surface-to-air missiles, blew up a passenger airliner. A Malaysian Airlines Flight 17 en route from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur got blown out the sky, and all 283 passengers and 15 crew, all civilians, were killed. And the Russians got away with it. Hardly anything happened as a fallout from that. A state sponsored the murder of 300 civilians. And there was barely a murmur. And this is what Putin's been doing. He's been pushing and pushing and pushing. I often talk about this like a child, when I'm talking about Boris Johnson. No one ever pushes him back. And that's why he is the way he is. It's the same thing. Putin's always pushing because he wants to know where the limit is. What can he get away with? And until someone stands up to him and says, oi, stop that, pack that in, which is why you need to stand up to bullies, he's going to continue doing this kind of shit. He also got away with the Salisbury poisonings, which was just an absolute disgrace. He killed a British citizen. Not directly, but his ordered assassination, an assassination attempt that he ordered, ended in the death of a British citizen on British soil. Now, I could talk about, you know, what happened in terms of the anti-government protests in Ukraine. Oh, it was March. It was March actually that the Yanukovych presidency was toppled. That was the Putin's puppet. China got away with invading Tibet. It did indeed. He remembered that war where we played a part, but took credit for solely for winning. Indeed. You're right, Graham. Bald and bankrupt always shows how lovely Russian people are. They're desperately poor but very kind. Yeah, Roger, they are. I mean, look, people are lovely all over the world. 99% of people are actually lovely. I know I would go with people who voted for Brexit, but you know, they were conned. I know they were conned. Just let me vent, okay? It's the people in charge. It's the people in charge. The people who get into power just should be nowhere near the corridors of power. Number 3 is saying that China got away with invading Tibet, and that's an interesting one. Yes, it did. And there's a reason for that. How the hell do you get a force into Tibet to get rid of the Han Chinese who are there? How do you do it? Are you going to send them over the Himalayas, are you? Are you? You're going to send them over the Himalayas, right? Is that what you're going to do? Good luck with that. And then how are they getting the other way? Through China. Yeah, are you going to send them in through China? Yeah, really? Good luck with that. So yeah, there's a book called Prisoners of Geography, and I don't know if I've not read it, but I will do. It's on my reading list. He must talk in that about the author must talk about Tibet, because it is a prisoner of geography. It's trapped. It's got all of one side is pretty much China, and then all of the other side is the Himalayas. Yeah, what can you do? Not on Twitter today. The Duke Vengeance saying, lovely. Duke, little, you know, from my own experience, I just block people on Twitter. I just can't be arsed. If anyone says something that I just even mildly disagree with, I honestly block them. I can't be arsed having the conversation. I really can't. Oh, by the way, I shared something by Fergal Sharkey, the lead singer of The Undertones today, and someone who follows me replied about something like this, the waste it was about wastewater getting into our water streams, and one of my friends or followers replied, and Fergal Sharkey replied to them. So I was added into the conversation. It was so exciting. It's the guy from The Undertones. They sang Teenage Kicks. Wow. Anyway, I get really excited about stuff like that. Anyway, so since late last year, Russia has been really pushing for the war that was going on in eastern Ukraine and Donetsk and around there. That kind of petered out, although still there were people getting killed. It was sort of 500 in 2018. I think in 2019 it had gone down to about 50, and then in 2020 I think it went down to 25. And tragic deaths, obviously, but the insurgency just wasn't getting anywhere. What Putin has done in the last 6-7 years is he has galvanized the people of Ukraine against him, and the people of Ukraine have put in a Russian-speaking president who's Jewish. I love that. It's just like, it's brilliant. It's what can Putin say to that? Putin can't say anything. He can't say he's a Nazi, and he can't say he's anti-Russian. He's not anti-Russian. He's a Russian speaker himself. But he can say, and he has been saying, we don't want Russia to run our country. Thank you very much. Although we do speak Russian. We have a lot of respect for the Russian people. But we can't be run from Moscow, okay? Because that's not fair, because it means the people of Ukraine don't have any self-determination, because they don't get to vote in who gets to be the leader in Moscow. Which is why countries shouldn't control other countries. Duh. So anyway, so this idea that Putin had. So let's go through the ideas that Putin had in Ukraine. He wanted, first of all, to control the leader. That ended with the Maidan Revolution in 2014. Then he turned his attention to annexing huge swathes of the country. He was successful in Crimea, but he wasn't successful in Donetsk in the same way. In eastern Ukraine, the Ukrainian army fought back. And what Putin wanted to do was to stir up this discontent against the Ukrainian government in Kyiv, the capital. By the way, it's pronounced Kyiv, apparently, not Kiev. Kiev is the Russian way of saying it. If you're a Ukrainian speaker, you say Kyiv. And also, I mean, what he's done, like I say, he's not just galvanized the people of Ukraine against him. He's kind of helped forge an identity for the different disparate people of Ukraine, whether they speak Ukrainian, whether they speak Russian, whether they're Tartars, whatever. They all feel now, nearly all of them feel Ukrainian, and they wanted that to continue. And in just the last 6-7 years, we've seen, Ukraine has seen its infrastructure come on in great strides, this great decentralization process in which places around the country were given a lot more autonomy, i.e. they had this idea, which is a great idea, and it's something that we should do here, where people in every local community are allowed to come up with ideas of what they would like to do, and then the people in that community get to vote on which idea they like the best. It's brilliant. And then that gets done. And also, Ukraine has been building really good, strong ties with other countries around the world, diplomatic ties. And, all things being equal, if you're trapped between the European Union and Russia, Russia is on its arse, man. I mean, I can't stress this enough. I know it's a big country. I know it's got a lot of money, but it doesn't really, because it's got a population of 120 million people. So shared out between them, it's got a GDP on about par with Grenada in the Caribbean. It's not, the people of Russia aren't living it up. The oligarchs are. The mates of Putin are. And the big point I wanted to make, I'll come into time soon, is this. Britain could stop this. I'm not kidding. Britain could stop this now. Britain could stop this before the end of this show. All they have to do, all our stupid, dickhead, rat-faced, cunt shine of a bastard government need to do, is to freeze the assets of all the Russian gangsters that own property in London, in Belgravia. That's all they need to do, because Putin doesn't have that much assets in his own name. What he does is he gets his mates to have his assets on his behalf, and he just takes it out of him. We found this out in the Panama Papers, or the Paradise Papers, in which his friend, who's a freaking, trombonist in the the Moscow City Symphony Orchestra or something, is worth over $2 billion. I don't think you get that much from busking with a trombone unless you're very good mates with Putin. We've got access to this money, but London is like, it's seen as the laundromat of this corrupt money. Not all over the world, but particularly from Russia. You want to clean your dirty Russian money? Clean it in London. Why not? And we have this power over Russia, but we won't use it because our stupid bastard government are all in the fucking pockets of the fucking Russian government. And you say this, and you sound like a conspiracy theorist. No, check the receipts. Members of Parliament have to declare where their income comes from. And nearly over half the Tory party has connections with Russian businessmen. Boris Johnson attended a bunga bunga party, a sex party, a sordid little grubby sex party in his mate Lebedev's fucking property in Italy. Guy who owns the Evening Standard, and the guy he made a lord, the Lord of Siberia, sitting in the House of Lords, voting on our fucking laws, and this guy is the son of a KGB officer. Where's his loyalty? You think he really, does he love this guy? Does he? Yeah, right. A Tory party, says Jim Robob. Yeah. Boris the Liar said he wanted to tax money laundering when he was mayor in London. Yeah, indeed. They won't do that, not while they're funded by the Russians. Yeah, exactly. Russia has a GDP smaller than Italy, says Roger King. Yeah, and a much bigger population. So it just, Not entirely sure, but I believe the primary language used in the Euromaidan was Russian, not Ukrainian. Yeah, I mean, the whole thing of people speak Russian there, so Russia needs to invade to help them out. It's a red herring. It's bullshit. Like I said earlier in the show, it's like Britain going, oh, let's go and invade North Island of New Zealand because they speak English there. Let's go and invade Tonga. They speak English in Tonga. Let's bloody go and invade them. I don't know. Drew says, what do you think the Tories have actively ruining the country? Yes. I mean, is the 6 million people on the NHS waiting list not enough for you? Is the lack of funding for education, for infrastructure, which is falling apart all over the nation? Is it the massive traffic queues along the A20 and the M20? Not enough. And also at the ports. Kieran just sent me a lovely little review of all the different ports around the UK and the kind of the waiting times, up to 48 hours in Felixstowe. Great. Woo, well done, everyone. This government is absolutely terrible. They can't govern. They don't want to govern. They just want to party, have a good time, and steal a load of money. And they're doing such a great job of it. They gave £4.3 billion to fraudsters. I mean, like, who would let any government get away with that? Do you know what I mean? If we were a basket case banana republic in the middle of buttfuck nowhere and the leader gave 4.3 billion pounds of our money, of the tribe's money, to some fucking gangster, we'll all go, oh yeah, great, well done, mate. Oh, I'm going to vote for you next time. That was a wonderful thing you did. I don't think so. They chase him with a tree and set fire to it, quite rightly. God damn it. Anyway, you misread. I agree. Tories are in cahoots with the Russians. Yes. I mean, it's obvious. I mean, they even say it. They state it in their written declarations where their money comes from. You got all these Tories who's, their fees for their children's expensive boarding schools. They're being paid for by their friend Vlad or their friend Dimitri bit funny. DimTR says, by that logic, Bulgaria and Romania have to invade too. Yes, indeed. The Brexit politics of post-truth nationalism reflects Russian politics, indeed. Great news, though. Alex Bellfield has been banned from YouTube. Oh, that's great news. I don't know who he is, but yes, that's good news. Some of our leaders, this is from Richard, some of our leaders are truly evil beings in human form. Yeah. I think they are. I think they are. But yeah, this idea that Putin is somehow liberating Ukraine, fuck off. Like, who honestly believes that? Anyone who comes up with that kind of excuse is either being paid to make up an excuse for what Putin is doing, or is really that stupid, is really that gullible. And if you do meet someone who is that gullible, can you put them in touch with me? Because I could really do with some money right now. So it would be great because I could just con them out of all their money. It'd be really, really simple. I just tell them I've got all this money in Nigeria in a bank account. I've got a friend who's a prince. And if they just give me 20 grand, I can unlock the PIN number that I need in order to put 27 million pounds in their bank account. And you know, I'll be quids in and I'll run away. And then when someone says, hey, Graham, that wasn't very nice, was it? And I'll say, well, you know, it's not like fraud's against the law, is it? It's not like it's a crime. Yeah, next you'll be telling me embezzlement's a crime and all. As if. Indeed. Phil says, quite a lot of Russian influence going on in local politics and services too, charities and local NHS too. It's absolutely right. It is indeed. Great. Yeah, the Russian influence in the UK, as mapped out in the Russia report that Boris Johnson sat upon for months and months and months, and then tried to put Failing Grayling in charge of the committee so it would never get released, and then that failed. And Failing Grayling, the only man failing enough to fail to win an election that he rigged. My God. Yeah, and then the Russian report finally came out, and one of its findings was that no one had done any investigation, not the Met Police by any stretch of the imagination, no one had done any investigation into the Russian meddling in the 2016 EU referendum, a referendum that so far cost Britain over £1.5 trillion. Oh yes, ladies and gentlemen, £1.5 trillion. If you got £50 notes and stack them up, to the height of 1.5 trillion, it would be about 6 or 7 times higher than the height of the International Space Station's orbit. Yeah, 1.5 trillion. That's how much Brexit has cost us so far. And it's going up and up and up and up. Has anyone done, like, you know, there's a debt clock in New York where it's got the debt. Has anyone done a Brexit one of them? Where it's all the assets and all the financial losses that we've made because as a direct result of Brexit. Have we got one? We should have one of them running and just clocking up all the time. I'll make one if you want. If someone can get me some of the calculations, we'll put it together and I'll put that together for you. I updated my Has the UK collapsed yet? No, nearly. Has the EU collapsed yet website? I'll share the link on here for shit and giggles. This is a website that you can share with your friends who voted for Brexit, who said that the EU was going to collapse 6 years ago. And it's called Has the EU Collapsed Yet.com. That should work. I hope that works. I'm going to click on it to make sure it works. I hope I haven't spelt it wrong. I was leaning around me mic. I should have just done that, shouldn't I? Yes. It's still working. Oh, there you go. Number 3, I intend to launch a Wikipedia-like site soon so I can record all of these dirty deeds. Number 3, thank you very much for that £5 super chat. Great idea. I've tried to set up. I've got Torypedia.uk and I want to put in all the nefarious Tories on there as a wiki site, but I honestly spent a few days trying to suss it out and it was a little bit beyond me. So I need to go back and really sort out how to do it, but it's one of those projects that I'm never going to get paid for, like Has the EU Collapsed Yet.com. So yeah, it's one of those things where if I can just spend sort of half an hour putting the website together for a laugh, then that's fine, but if I have to do anything more than that, I'm kind of like, well, you need to pay me. Unfortunately. Okay, right, I'm coming up to an hour online now. I know I came on a bit late today, but as always, 10 past, but yes, I hope we learned something today when we're talking about Ukraine. Maybe the main thing that we learned is that I really, really hate Vladimir Putin. I really do. And I hate Boris Johnson. And I hate Donald Trump. And I hate Viktor Orban. And I hate Marine Le Pen. And I hate dirty Duterte in the Philippines. And I hate Bolsonaro, who is currently ripping up vast swathes of the Amazon rainforest because he's just a gobshite. He's just a complete and utter gobshite. And these people are in charge in our countries. And we really need to do something about it. Because if we don't tackle the bigger problem that's going on right now, and it's not Putin, it's not Ukraine, it's not Brexit, it's not even COVID. The big issue that we are facing at the moment is that there are more parts per million of carbon dioxide in our atmosphere than there has been for millions of years. And every single part per million extra of carbon dioxide that goes into the atmosphere, every one that goes in there, what happens is the likelihood, the chances, the percentage chance of your children or grandchildren dying a violent death increases. Not because they're going to be burnt in some kind of like solar fucking fire or anything, but just because of the instability that it will cause. You have a country like Bangladesh, which is critically endangered when it comes to global climate change. Those people, over 200 million people, they're going to want to go somewhere if they can't stay in their own country. And the countries around them are going to say no. And then they'll keep going. They'll go to some other one's country and they're going to say no. And they're going to keep going. And yeah, not all of them are going to get to Britain, but enough will to really disrupt what's happening in Britain. Because every time we have a swell of people coming from other countries, we have this reaction, this right-wing knee-jerk reaction of over-the-top, oh my God, xenophobia, nativism. And yeah, I mean, we've seen this on a much smaller scale with a handful of people coming over in boats from France, but originally from Syria, from Eritrea, from Sudan, from Libya. And yeah, people are freaking out now. They're freaking out over a handful of people. Imagine 1 million people coming over in one day. Imagine 1 million people swarming. It's literally swarming into Britain. and see how we deal with that. I don't think it's going to be pretty. I don't think it's a nice future to bequeath to our nation's children, or to any nation's children, to be honest with you. And the people who seem to want this, because now this is the new thing. If you've noticed, there's been a bit of a gear shift with the right-wing press and on the dickheads on Twitter and the heads on gobs on sticks and the clanging manholes have been they've had their Brexit fun, and then they had all their COVID stuff of we don't want to wear masks, we don't want to get vaccinated, we don't want lockdowns, we want to infect as many people as possible and kill them. And now the latest grift is that they're going to pretend that global climate change isn't a thing, and that the reason for our high fuel bills isn't in political instability around the world, or the fact that we are completely reliant on our gas from Russia and from Qatar. Great. Which means it's got to go past some Somali pirates and through the bloody Suez Canal, if it's not blocked with a big ship, in order to get to the UK. A journey of several thousand miles in order to get to the UK full of gas. Obviously, it's cooled down a lot, so it's liquid as it comes over. But still, that's where we're getting most of our gas from these days, and that's why it's gone so expensive. But they want to pretend that the reason why the fuel bills are going up is because it's all because of the woke agenda wanting to have windmills. And it's like, they're not windmills, mate. They're wind turbines. A very different fucking thing. But whatever, right? They're arguing against energy self-sufficiency. They are basically standing up and saying, we should be subservient to Saudi Arabia for the rest of time. Why? Because they'll have the things that we need to live our everyday life. But we can make our own energy. No, we don't do that. It's a load of woke nonsense. It's painful. It's painful to watch. And the thing is with this government, and this has been a case of this government for the last sort of 11, 12 years now, they can't make a fucking decision. They can make a decision about something that doesn't matter. They're good at that. They're good at making decisions about having an in-out referendum on the EU. Yeah, that's fine, great. But when it comes to something important, they dither. They dither and prevaricate, and they can't come up with an idea. And that goes for Cameron, it goes for May, and it definitely goes for Boris Johnson. Go Green, says number 3. Yes, I intend to. Thanks very much, Richard, for the super chat. Richard's been very generous with the super chats this evening. I don't think he's asked me to swear once. So thank you very much, sir. You are a gentleman and not a thief. Phil says modern humans seem too arrogant to accept that climate change could affect them. In 535 to 555, there's evidence of major civilization collapse in every continent on the planet due to climate change. Yeah. There's a book by, what's his name? Jared Diamond, called Collapse, and it's about how civilizations around the world have collapsed in the past. And the one thing that they all had in common, I mean, there's lots of different factors for each different civilization. He talks about the Mayans, he talks about Easter Island, he talks about the Rapa Nui of Easter Island, he talks about the Roman Empire. A lot of it was to do with climate change, maybe just in the climate in which they lived. It changed, and the days of wine and roses, the honey and that other stuff were over, and we're heading for that, but on a global scale, and we need to wake up and do something about it, and we need people banging the drum and saying, listen, this is fucking serious. If these grandparents out there really love their grandchildren, they don't want them to die screaming. I assume they don't want them to die screaming. But stop destroying the world and basically fostering that inevitability of there being a violent death for most people on this planet. I'd like most people, if everyone's going to die, I'd like most people to go peacefully in their sleep. I don't want them to be murdered by a rampaging mob looking for food. Anyway. Glasgow Kiss, I gave £22 in super chats, some of them not read. But £2 chats are generous. Fuck my life. I'm so sorry. Did I not read your... Yeah, I read your £20 one, mate. That was the swear jar, wasn't it? Yes, and you also said to the swear jar, wank, not you. I read that. And yes. And I also read about the new channels being a risky move. I said, thank you very much, Glasgow. You're very generous. Maybe I'll notice it more if you put in like £4 or £5 super chats coming in there. Oh, I feel bad now. I'm sorry, Glasgow. Vote Leave was always a movement that represented an open-ended revolt against enlightenment and rationality, masquerading as something else, making itself look like something else than naive. You're absolutely right, Adrian. You're absolutely right. Okay, so there is no PMQs this week, so I will be back on Thursday with an episode of... Oh, God, I just hit myself in the face with my little string. I will be back on Thursday night at 10 o'clock with a new episode of Hughes of the World about Comoros, just off the coast of Africa. And until then, take care. I will be over on the Discord server for a little bit for after hours. So if you want to meet me there, and we can talk a little bit about the situation in Russia. Reagan Elite saying Glasgow Kiss needs to put in 50 quid at least. Glasgow Kiss has given a lot in the past. He doesn't need to give another 50 quid, but thank you very much. Brexit bad indeed. Daily Express. Okay, so we've got the newspapers, tomorrow's newspapers, which have come up, which I can show you if I'm just very quick here. I was going to go to the Patreon page and just say goodnight, but let's have a look at this. Let's make it a full screen. Oh no, what have I done? Oh no. Don't you love it when you try and make it full screen and instead of making it full screen you actually bring up the wrong thing? Okay, right. Okay. Just one moment. You'll be with me in a moment. Yes, I know. I'm getting there. Oh, God, what? There we go. Okay, right. These are tomorrow's papers. The Daily Star, being stupid as always, about Reg Vardy or something. I don't know. Who's that? Rooney. Oh, right. So it's about some court case. I don't know anything about it. Right. Daily Express. Final warning to Putin. It's peace or you'll pay a high price. We've got the Mirror down here. Last chance to stop war. Diplomacy can still save Ukraine, insists Johnson. No, actually, just freezing the assets of Russian oligarchs in London would do it. Last ditch efforts to stop war in Europe is on the front cover of the Eye on the Independent. There, it's got poised for war, and it's got I think that's a picture of a Russian tank or maybe Ukrainian tank wargaming. In the Daily Telegraph, you see a theme here. Window for peace open. It says Biden and Johnson. And then we've got 33 die without justice in post office scandal. To do with the postmasters. There's a picture of Naomi Campbell with her baby. She's my baby and she's not adopted. Okay. PM, just say no. Europe hooked on Russian gas supplies. And that's, I don't know, dig from a dig against the EU, I guess, from the Metro there, which I think is owned by the same person who owns the Evening Standard, maybe. And the Guardian over here says very, very dangerous. PM's warning on Russia build up. So yeah, it's not looking good. We had a good run there, didn't we? We had how many years? 20 years since a war in a full-blooded war in Europe. The last one would have been Kosovo in 1998, wouldn't it? That's over 24 years. Jesus Christ. Oh well, all good things come to an end, I guess. But in the meantime, I'm going to head over to the Discord server. So if you are a patron or a YouTube subscriber, sorry, not a subscriber, a YouTube member, which is one level above a subscriber, you have exclusive access to the Discord server. So please come and join us on that in a moment. And until Thursday, when I hope to see you on the Graham Hughes Travels channel for the show about Ukraine, I'll say thanks for watching. Hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.